Biden is the architect of. Okay, chic. Okay, I didn't plan to get into this, but I'm glad you asked because we will get to this now. How is Biden? How is Joe Biden the architect of mass incarceration? So, if you follow Trump, you would hear Trump talk about the 94 crime bill, and I remember seeing Trump talk about it, and I really wanted somebody to ask him. I knew Biden was going to ask him because Biden didn't want to know the answer. But if like Joe Jorgensen had been on the stage, it would have been great to ask her, to see her ask Trump, what don't you like about the 94 crime bill? Because he would just, all he said was, oh, it's horrible. It's bad, bad, very bad for black people. Horrible, horrible, horrible for black people. Bad, bad. So many black people in jail. But the 94 crime bill, as bad as it was, as many death penalty eligible crimes that it created, as much money as it put in militarizing the police in state police departments all over the world, all over the country, that's not even where it began. Joe Biden had been building up this mass incarceration system long before the 94 crime bill, long before the Violent Crime Control Law Enforcement Act. Long before that, he had been building up this mass incarceration system. Because you know what he did in 1984? In 1984, under the guise of sentencing reform, they eliminated federal parole. So the Sentencing Reform Act of 1984 eliminated federal parole. Wait, there's more. It eliminated federal parole, created a system called supervised release, and mandated 85%, at least 85% of time that prisoners now had to serve. Because under federal parole, a person could get out on good time with having served 65% of the sentence. They pushed it up to 85%. Mandatory. You have to do at least 85% of your time. But, like I said, wait, there's more. Because they increased the amount of time they were giving. In 1986, the Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1986, he created something called the 100-to-1 ratio. Do you know what the 100-to-1 ratio is? The 100-to-1 ratio created a law where a person with powder cocaine, a person with crack cocaine got sentenced to the same amount of time as a person that had 100 times more powder cocaine. So if you got caught with 5 grams of crack cocaine, you got sentenced to the same amount of time as a person who got caught with 500 grams of powder cocaine. And guess who always got sentenced and charged with crack cocaine? And I misspoke. I said if you got caught with, correction, if you got charged with, because they were charging people who they didn't even catch with crack cocaine. If they caught somebody with powder cocaine, but there was baking powder in their home, guess what they did? Oh, you was about to cook this powder cocaine into crack cocaine, and so we're going to charge you with the equivalent amount of crack cocaine, despite the fact that you didn't even have it in that amount. In fact, if we didn't even catch you with the amount, we didn't catch you with any drugs, but we've got people saying you sold crack. That's what we're going to charge you with. We're going to charge you with the amount that people say you sold. So if you want to know how Biden is the architect of mass incarceration, those are just a couple of the ways. Because Joe Biden was on a crusade from the 80s and 90s to increase the amount of people going to prison, the amount of black people going to prison, the amount of time they were serving in prison, and worsen the conditions they experienced in prison. That's how Joe Biden is the architect of mass incarceration. Oh, yeah. And one other thing, that whole 85% thing, what they call truth in sentencing, he, as a leader in the Democratic Party, pushed that to state Democratic parties. So when they say, oh, well, the federal government is only responsible for a certain amount of people incarcerated, what they're not talking about is that the Democratic Party, of which Joe Biden, who at the time was the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, of the Senate Judiciary Committee, who's the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, pushed these laws at the state level. So he used his influence as a leader in the Democratic Party to make sure that at the state level, they were implementing these same policies. So yes, Joe Biden is the architect of mass incarceration. So when we're looking at this, when we're looking at where we are and we're looking at this, there's this white grievance politics happening right now. And it's dangerous. It's dangerous because the people that are propagating it aren't just saying, oh, white people are the victim. Woe is us. They're saying white people are the victims. We need to do something. And that something that they're willing to do includes mass murder. That something that they're willing to do includes using the government to wipe people out, using the government to enact the will of psychopaths. That's what they've done in history. And we've got a bunch of these people that are still running around today, and they've infiltrated these anti-Black organizations. They've infiltrated law enforcement at various levels. Not just cops, not just local police, federal law enforcement, correctional institutions, executive politicians, legislators. They've infiltrated all areas of government, and they will have no problem using government to enact their heinous plans. We have got to be focused on protecting ourselves. Oh my God, I can't believe such illogical laws were passed. Yeah, it's just absolute horror show. Yes, so that's why you got to realize that a bunch of these so-called Black leaders are not actually Black leaders. Did we pick them? Or were they picked for us? When the Democratic Party picks some Black person, puts this person in front of our face and says, hey, this is your leader. We didn't pick them. And trust me, they're not actually working for us. And it's funny because, like, if you look at real estate, the whole thing with agents or the real estate agent, you can be in an apartment and a real estate agent can be showing you an apartment and you think, okay, you ask them questions because if you know that a real estate agent can't lie to their client, you know, there's certain things that a real estate agent has to do to their client and certain responsibilities. So you may ask certain questions with the mindset of, oh yeah, well the real estate agent has to do this with their client, this with their client. They have to be honest, they have to be forthcoming, and they have to obey their client. But so many times people don't realize that the real estate agent that's showing them the apartment that's not their agent. They're not the client. They're the customer. They're not the client. The client is the person who owns the apartment, who owns the building. You're just the customer. But that's the position so many of us are in when we're dealing with these politicians. We think that we're the client. These no. We're not even the customer in that case. In a lot of cases, we're the product. And we're being sold to their actual client, to the Democratic Party. That's what these politicians, they're put in place to sell us and our votes to the party. They're not working for us. They're working for them. Thank you for checking out this episode of Escaping the Echo Chamber. If you would like to check out the entire live stream, you can click on the screen now, or you can click on the link in the description box below. I'll see you next time.